two points. But I mean, don't you think that they tried to build him up before because he was underweight? He hadn't gained any weight since he was born. That's why they did the feeding tube thing. Oh,
Well, it got quiet. Must be time to start city council meeting. Welcome today. Appreciate you being here. And on this beautiful, let's see, what's today? Is it summer? I think it's summer. First day of summer. 21st of June. So again, thanks for being here. Let's begin. We are missing a couple of council members. We excuse both Michelle and Jimmy today, both with family for different reasons, and our thoughts are with them, especially Michelle's family. She's just dealing with a young grandson who is getting some medical help that he needs, and so anyway, we wish them the best, and we will mention here up front that I don't see anything that's maybe makes me too nervous in terms of passing items, but everything that is approved today or voted on today will need to be unanimous, you know, and so because we only have 3 council members. So if anyone on the agenda, and I'll repeat it later, is nervous about that, then you could ask us to table your agenda item for another meeting. So we'll just say that up front. Happy today to begin with an invocation from Don Bush from the Salvation Army. He's on the board, used to run the place, and now he's still on the board helping to make things happen there. Appreciate you being here, Don, representing them, and of course the Interfaith Council of St. George. After the invocation, we have 2 young scouts in the back of the room, Cole and Truman, their cousins. Everett, that's a good St. George name, isn't it, Joe? Grandsons of Ted Everett, sitting there with them. And so Cole is going to be the voice and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Cole is from South Jordan, and Truman Everett is from Temecula, California. So nice to have you both here with your grandpa today. Okay, so we'll start with an invocation with Donald Bush.
Everybody please bow your heads. Lord, we thank you so much for letting us live in such a gracious land, and you bestowed us with so much, and with that comes responsibility to do your will, Lord. We ask that you be with us today, and that you would increase in us, and that we would decrease in ourselves, and let your will be done, Lord. That you would give these councilmen and those coming to seek their claims with the council favor, and Lord, we thank you for everything you've given us here, because we're so very grateful, and we've been given so much, and we owe it all to you. So in your name we pray, amen.
Thank you, Don. All right, young men, come up here to the podium and tell us what we need to do, will you? Cole is a pro, so just watch this.
Would you please stand and repeat the pledge with me? Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tell us we can be seated, Cole. You can do it from there.
You can be seated now.
Isn't that great? Good job, young men. Appreciate you being here. You're working on their citizenship and the community merit badges. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Okay. I don't think there's anything pre-agenda. Is there, Christina? Any changes to the agenda, Adam?
No changes from the posted agenda.
Did notice that there is an addendum.
That's correct.
And so we've got that, and we also have the separate agenda for the redevelopment. Yeah, so remember that. Okay, well, let's go through, Adam, the consent calendar. Should we start with that?
Let's do that. On the consent calendar, we have 8 items. As a reminder, these items are administrative in nature. They've been reviewed by staff and found to comply with all of our ordinances and regulations. Unless there are any of these items that you'd like to pull for individual discussion, we would recommend approval of the consent calendar as posted.
Mayor, I so move.
Okay, we have a motion by Betty and a second by Joe. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Adam.
Next up is public hearing for an ordinance to vacate a portion of 1740 West Street, including the utilities and a drainage easement, and John is going to give us a background on this.
We've got them so they can be at 5 now. Yep. Yep. Good change, huh?
So this is the exhibit the applicant provided. When this road 1740 West was originally dedicated, it was dedicated as a cul-de-sac. However, when it was built as a T, and so there's an excess portion that the applicant is requesting to be vacated. The amended plat is later on in the agenda if this is approved, and that's what the applicant is requesting.
Any questions on this for John? Item number 2. Okay, then I will open the public hearing in case there's anyone here who would like to provide input or ask questions on this item, number 2 on our agenda. And seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and come back to you, council, for your consideration.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the request, the ordinance that vacates a portion of 1740 West Street and its public utilities and drainage easement.
Second.
We have a motion by Ed with a second by Betty. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, this is an ordinance requiring a roll call vote, so all in favor, starting with Betty, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously.
Item number 3 is to consider proposed amendments to the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget. We're just a few days away from completing this fiscal year. And over the course of the year, as you're aware, we do make adjustments as necessary as items come up that we may not have contemplated when the budget was initially approved. So we're going to have Dee Brklasic go over some of these proposed changes with you.
Sure. Do you want me to introduce Chad?
Yeah,
Let's do that
please
now.
do.
Would that be all right?
Yeah.
Now's probably a good time. As you know, this year we have a brand new position, which is our assistant budget manager. We've hired Chad Moultrie, and he's here with me right now. And I just wanted to introduce Chad to you, and he'll be working alongside with me, and he'll be working with department heads and so forth. So we're excited to have Chad. He comes to us from, he lives in Syracuse, but he worked for West Valley City, and so he has some background in governmental budgeting and accounting and so forth. So we're excited to have Chad on board.
Chad, I really hope you can have a better commute than that when you live down here. Okay.
Anyway, so I'll go ahead and get started. This is the last and final budget opening for the fiscal year 18, and we've had budget openings about every 2 or 3 months, and so there's not too many on here. There's just a wrap up of some items. The first item is just to increase the police department's salary and benefits budgets by $168,000. And this actually stems from back in December when we made an adjustment to the police officers market, which I had under budgeted. We budgeted a certain percentage for all departments. Theirs actually came in a little bit higher. We took a wait and see approach, wanted to see if by the end of the fiscal year if they were still under or if this budget opening was necessary. We have determined with forecasting that it is necessary at this time to make sure that they're under budget. The second item is to increase the police department's overtime budget for $100,000. What we've had difficulty in hiring new police officers due to a statewide and likely national shortage of finding police officers. So we've had to backfill that by paying overtime. And also some events where we've had to call out people on overtime. For example, this homicide that we had this past week and so forth. And so we're asking for a $100,000 increase to overtime. We don't anticipate that they will need that much, but we would like to put it there just as a fail-safe. Number 3 is to increase the Planning Commission's travel and training budget. They have attended additional training this year because they've had new members, and so that was unexpected. And they do have a really small budget, so any slight change there we need to increase and make an amendment for. Number 4 is to increase the professional and technical services in the Development Services Department. This is for third-party plan review consultants for our commercial and residential projects that come to us. And this past year we've had more commercial / residential combined projects such as Joel Plaza and so forth. And so we've needed to use the consultants more during this year than we have in past years. Number 5 is for softball. This is offset by, number 4 is offset by planning fees, so it's funded budget opening. Number 5 is for softball. We have had increased costs due to increased participation in our summer league and increased expenditures to hold the NCJ or NJCAA tournament, which I think we just renewed for an additional 3 years.
Great.
So that budget opening for $20,000 encompasses that. So the item number 6, these budget openings are all in our general fund, and every year we do a end of the year estimate to see where we think our actual revenues that we budgeted will come in, or actual revenues will come in as opposed to budget. And some of the expenditures, some of the high dollar expenditures that we think will not be done this year. And we make a final year-end adjustment. This gives us the ability to transfer any excess money to our capital projects funds or to our economic development funds, or we can make the decision to leave this in our fund balance in the general fund. But if we increase this to a maximum amount, then it gives us that flexibility of once we've closed out the fiscal year and made that decision of where our revenues are as compared to our expenditures, how much we want to transfer out. This budget opening just gives us a flexibility to transfer. It actually will give us the ability to transfer a potential of up to $9 million one-time monies into other funds to be used for one-time projects at a later date. Item number 7 is for our, these are now non-general fund items. It's for our Public Works Capital Project Fund. It's basically a pass-through where UDOT has asked the city to be the project manager for the Ledges interchange improvements for $190,000. So once we make those improvements, UDOT will fully reimburse us for that. Items number 8 and 9 and 10 all pertain to our drug seizure fund. And essentially we're pulling the funds from our appropriated fund balance. Last year we had a forfeiture of a fairly significant amount of money, and a couple council meetings ago there was some direction to the council or to the police department to add another K9 unit. So part of these budget openings are to add that K9 unit. Number 8 is to purchase both the surveillance equipment and tracking services needed by the drug task force. They attach it to vehicles and so forth, and track drug activity that way. Item number 9 is we were able to purchase a seized vehicle at a reduced amount, and so that's shows as $10,386, but we received $5,760 for that. So we only paid $4,600 for that vehicle, including the cost to upfit it. And number 9 is to purchase the K9. We want to get the K9 purchased before the end of this fiscal year, because training will start first thing in July, and we want to give the officer and the K9 time to bond. So that's what item 10 is. Item number 11 is the SIB loan that you approved last council meeting. It's the pass-through loan for Southern Parkway Interchange 5. Desert Canyons is going to build the interchange. But we need to recognize the loan as a receipt of revenue, and then also the loan to Desert Canyons as an expenditure of our funds. So it's more of a housekeeping
Bookkeeping,
item, even
yeah.
though the amount's quite big. And number 12 is just we had some additional environmental studies completed by our CDBG consultant. So that's for $3,500 to improve those added expenditures, and it's funded by the CDBG grant. So, and that's all I have. Okay.
Wow. We sure appreciate that you keep track of these things, Deanna. So
Well,
thank you.
and all the department heads and
Yeah.
managers, so, yeah.
Are there any questions before we open the public hearing, council? Excellent report. Thank you for going through those in a detailed way. All right, I will open the public hearing for any who may have come to provide input on this item, number 3 on our agenda today. And again, these are to approve final amendments to the fiscal year 2017-18 fiscal year. So it's the one we're about to conclude, as Deanna said, here on June 30th. And seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and come back to you, council, for any discussion or your action.
Mayor, I'm ready to.
Mayor, I would just make a comment that
Okay.
I noticed under number 6 that there is an inclusion of an amount for the Red Hills Golf Course. For those at home listening and been years wondering when that might move forward, that the time seems to be coming that construction will take place. So hopefully that will put some smiles on some folks' face, and I guess we covered a lot of stuff for the police department today, and at least the fire department feels slighted. The fire department has been looked and cared for, and the citizens should know that all of the public safety inclusions are there to make the protection of the citizens and the employees possible.
Thank you, Ed. Appreciate it. And yeah, we do have in next year's proposed budget the Red Hills Golf Course Clubhouse, and so we hope that the circumstances, the environment will be such, and with some modifications to it, that we can, get that within the bucket, if you will, the bucket budget. Okay, now Betty, if you're ready.
Thanks, Ed. That's near and dear to all of our hearts. Yes, I would like to move. Oh, by the way, because our budget process is so great, I know some people think it's the time and they don't look forward to it. I really do look forward to it. I love to meet with all of those wonderful people back there and hear what they're doing and of their needs. I think it's a very valuable thing for a council. And because of the thoroughness of that process, I would be happy to move that we approve the final amendments to the fiscal year 2017-18 budget.
Second. Motion by Betty with a second by Joe. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Ed this time, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you again, Deanna. Thank you, Adam, and all of our department heads.
Okay, item number 4 is a public hearing and resolution to formally adopt the fiscal year 2018-2019 budget. And I've got a handout here that I'm just going to pass around for you that Dee has prepared, and we'll invite her up to provide some background and explanation on this item as well.
Okay, so just to recap, the preliminary budget was presented to the mayor and council on May 3rd. We have had the preliminary budget. It's been on our city website. It's been at the city recorder's office for review by our citizens. The total combined city budget is proposed at $270,862,481. Of that, the general fund comprises $73,206,261 in the preliminary budget. During May, we did have work meetings to visit, for the department heads to visit with the mayor and city council regarding their budgets. And then on June 7th, we had a public hearing regarding, to take public comment from the citizens for the budget. I don't know if you want to go into the amendments that we've discussed at this time, Adam, or if you want to take public
It's up
hearing
to you,
and then
Mayor,
have
if you'd
that
like
discussion.
to, how you'd like to handle that. We can provide you any information you'd like. We know you've seen a lot of this stuff already, but we're happy to review. any
And
of
when
those
you say
items.
amendments, you're talking about the ones,
Since the recommended budget, this list that Deanna's prepared for us.
I don't know that it's necessary since you provided this, but council, would you like her to go through any of
I'm
these?
comfortable with it.
We're satisfied.
You good?
Okay,
Joe?
all right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so again, you mentioned this already, the total general fund balance or budget would be, what, was it 73?
The general fund is 73, I gotta get my cheat sheet here, 73,206,261 and change, I'm sure.
And then when you add all the enterprise funds and so
Right.
forth, that's
So-
what gets it to the,
The 270,862, so that includes our water, power, or yes, water, power, all our project funds, public work capital projects. It's basically all of our funds that the city oversees in total.
the budget, just for those in the public and watching, the easy version looks something like this, you know, it's pretty fat.
Yeah,
She's got lots more detail,
Like-
right? Yeah,
yeah.
voluminous amount.
probably taller than I am,
Yeah.
so that's not hard, but
So it's extensive, and we know
Right.
the work is extensive.
yeah.
Are there any questions, council, before I open the final public hearing for the 2019 fiscal year budget?
Okay.
Okay. Deanna, thank you. Thank you again to all of our department heads. And Adam, appreciate you coming into this on February 9th and adding great value, I feel, to the process. And I really feel like this is probably, we've had more opportunities this year to discuss this, and I think we'll have even more and a little bit sooner for the next fiscal year budget, as Adam has kind of explained to us and offered. So, and that's good. It makes for a better end product, and of course these are citizens' funds, and it's important. And businesses, you know, sales tax, enterprise funds, franchise fees. There's a lot contained in this, pretty extensive. But we're always happy to answer questions, and especially Deanna and others are happy to answer questions about the budget from the public that might have questions throughout the year on this. So I will open the public hearing at this time for anyone that may have come to provide input or ask any questions on the budget for the 2018-19 fiscal year, which begins, by the way, July 1st. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and come back to you, council, for any further discussion or your action.
Mayor, I have one question. Number 7, community arts. We decided not to do that feasibility study. Is that correct? And that's why it's in red?
That's right.
That's
Okay.
right. Thank
Just want to
you.
make sure. Thank
That's
you.
just the kind of question we ought to have. And I really think this is helpful. Thank you
Yeah,
very
me too.
much for doing that, Dee. Any other questions?
I'm sure you thought we'd remember everything, but some of it's old.
Any other questions, council? Otherwise, ready for a motion if you're so inclined.
It was just another good job by all the city staff, Mayor, and particularly Adam. This is the first year of coming aboard. Really appreciate all that you're doing. I would make a motion, Mayor, that we approve the resolution to formally adopt the fiscal year 2018-2019 budget as specified, with the amendment specified.
Second.
Have a motion by Ed with a second by Betty. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, starting with Betty this time, say aye.
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 The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Deanna. Appreciate you being here. Best to your good husband. Thank you.
And Chad, you can take over next year.
Yes, Chad, welcome. We're glad to have you here.
Okay, thank you. Item number 5 is to consider an ordinance to amend and adopt some fees. As we've gone along, we've looked at some of our fees for services and some recreational activities, and so this ordinance would amend some of those fees. And Deanna, were you going to provide the background for that?
So with the fees, we are not proposing, I should have mentioned this earlier, we are not proposing an increase in our property tax at all. Our property taxes will increase just based upon new growth. However, having said that, some of the new fees that are being proposed, I believe that there's a schedule added to that, is the water fees are increasing and it's a pass-through of our fee increase from the
district.
Our wholesale rates from the district. We are proposing a increase in the storm drain fees from $1.50 to $4.50 per impervious unit. And then our sewer fees, our local collection fees are increasing $2.12, and then our regional fees $2.70. And I believe that Scott presented that information to you during a work meeting. Some of the recreation fees for our rentals of service or facilities are increasing slightly, just more to mirror the time blocks. And we do, in a lot of occasions, outsource the professional services for people to come in and be there while parties are being held or events are being held. And so they basically cover our costs to bring in temporary workers to be in attendance at the events. Some of our softball fees are increasing for tournaments, and that's because our umpire fees are increasing. We have to hire out for umpire fees. So most of those fees are passed through due to increased costs that are not necessarily in our control. And we do ask the departments every year as part of the budget process. They look at all their fees and all their fee schedules, and they try to make sure that we are, for the best part, covering our costs and, keeping in line with where they need to be with our departments and so forth. So those are the primary fees that have been proposed in this year's budget.
So again, based on our the exhibit that we have, it says current in one column and then proposed. So if there's nothing in proposed, then there's no change.
Then it's the current.
Yeah.
Then it defaults to what is in the current column.
Any questions, council, or anything else, Dee, that?
Just that the fees will go into effect July 1st. Right.
Any questions before I?
Has there been any prior reservations for some of those places that may fall into a gray area?
I cannot answer that.
I don't know why, I just thought about it.
No, that's a good question, Joe.
I don't see.
Seems like if it's already been reserved.
If they've signed the papers, they better get the old price.
Yeah, if they've signed the papers, we're obviously going to stand by that contract. And they do come in and reserve in advance for weddings and so forth, or some events and stuff. And so we will honor those contracts if they've been signed. Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, this doesn't require a public hearing, correct? I don't see it listed.
Not a public hearing, but approval by resolution.
It's an ordinance. Yep.
Yes.
Any other questions, council? If not, I'd be ready for a motion if you're so inclined.
Just appears pretty modest, Mayor, and keeping with the measurement with other cities and so forth. We seem to be pretty modest in controlling the fees and so forth.
Mayor, I did have a thought, and you all know, I probably ad nauseum have talked about the electric theater and the potential to have movie
Nights or festivals?
nights, festivals, yes, thank you, with great old movies. I think there's some real value to that, especially with our upcoming generation and for the older ones that love to see the movies that they remember. And right now, the fee, there is a fee to rent the theater itself. And then I thought that maybe if the movies were in the public domain, there wouldn't be a royalty charge for it. But unfortunately, a lot of the movies that I'm thinking of that aren't just really, really old and grainy and black and white, I'm not talking about those.
There will be fees.
Yeah, there are fees for these others. And to the point that it's just a little prohibitive for, you know, groups or friends or whatever. And the city is looking into having some festivals, and so I think that's really very exciting. But I think that just for another year, we might want to put that on the agenda to at least look at it, to reduce the rental for the theater if we have to pay royalty fees or one or the other, so that it makes it so that it's possible on a very hot summer afternoon like today, groups of people can go to the very cool, lovely theater and watch a great old movie.
So if we had a fee that we've accepted, if we might say, well, if there's a royalty, then you pay the difference or something like that.
Yeah,
Is that what you're
exactly.
getting
That's what
at?
I'm saying. Right now, I think it's $150 to rent the theater, and the royalty for most of these movies, like a really good Alfred Hitchcock movie, it's $150. And so that's just a lot of money.
For especially if it's a small group or
Just
something.
a little group. So I'm just saying either or I'm sure Gary and those that are managing the theater might have a better idea. But anyway, I'd love to see that theater being used when it's not a rehearsal time. There's a lot of dead time in the middle of the day.
Adam?
You know, we have discussed this, and I know that Gary right now is putting together some ideas for programming, and I would envision that a lot of those would be city-sponsored, and so there wouldn't be any fees associated with that, and that the city would be able to cover the cost on some of those types of programming. You know, what we could do is get that proposal from Gary and kind of see how that looks, and then we could revisit the fees, and if we feel like at that point having a better idea of what the city-sponsored part might be, maybe at that point we'd be better prepared to address fees. Would you like to do it that way?
Sounds great.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So we would still have an opportunity to adjust these fees as time went on?
Certainly.
Thank you.
It's always within our purview. And, you know, and we've talked about this before. We have, you know, other fees associated, you know, with parks and town square. And we have some pressures, you know, from, well, let's say frequently, from especially not-for-profit groups to, you know, either sponsor it so that we will waive a fee or something, or in lieu of our sponsorship, that is our contribution. You know, it's been tough over the 11 years, I think, is it 11 years, 10 and a half years I've been involved. It's tough to know how you do all that, and so the pendulum swings occasionally, and we make adjustments. We might need to make a few adjustments there too, but we can do that, Betty.
If it becomes so popular, then we do it. We raise the fees, but rather than have the buildings empty, there might be something we could do even in our art museum. To have times when it's really kind of dead, to have free times.
Which, by the way, there's an event opening tomorrow night, I think, at the Arts Museum. Okay, good point. And we can discuss that and make changes. I like that proposal Adam made. So, any other comments or discussion on this item? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion, if you're so inclined, to approve an ordinance amending and adopting these certain fees for various services and recreational activities.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Joe with a second by Betty. Any discussion? All in favor, starting with Betty, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you
All right,
again.
thank you.
Okay, items 6 through, let's see, 6 through 17 are conditional use permits, final plats, and preliminary plats, and we're going to go ahead and turn the time over to our planning staff to take us through those.
Hey, Adam, before we do that, could we have Chief Stratton come forward just for a moment? I forgot to do this at the beginning, to talk about the
text to 911?
Yes. Chief Stratton?
Mayor, I've asked Deputy Chief Farnsworth, who's very involved in that.
Very good. Thank you, Chief. Deputy Chief Rich Farnsworth, come tell us what's just happened in terms of some 911.
What's just happened is the chief threw me under the bus. Well, as you've seen, and many of you know, we've been working on getting the text 911 down here for quite some time. We've had the equipment installed for close to a year now, but the cell phone companies and the technology hasn't supported it down here yet. Well, that's done. So we've gone live, and now we have the ability to receive text messages to the 911 center. We still prefer phone calls. They're more efficient. So call if you can, text if you can't, but for hearing impaired individuals or in certain circumstances, it's a great option. So the text message comes across, it looks to our dispatchers just like they're looking at a telephone. There's also some real benefits to it. People who have very low cell phone service that won't pick up a call. Some people out in some of these outlying areas have like one bar of service. They can reach us where it wouldn't pick up a phone call. It takes a lot less data across that. And so it's up and going, and people are welcome to use it if it's the best communication for them.
It's good. I saw it covered in the media yesterday, so that's good news.
So Rich, I had a little challenge reading that in the media because I'm technical midget. But do we have to do something different with our phones?
All you have to do is where you would normally type in a number that you would text somebody, a phone number, just type 911, go to the body of the message, type what your message is, and hit send. And it's instantaneous. Another thing that it does is about every 20 seconds, your phone will send the location signal to the dispatch center as well. So it turns on the GPS tracking, and it will notify us of where that phone's coming from, so we can do that as well.
That's probably great for all the wild areas we have
Absolutely.
out in the county.
We expect that to be very valuable in those situations, especially with you know, some of the places around town that have a little bit of limited coverage. They will still be able to reach 911 where they probably couldn't get a phone call to go through.
That's great.
Any questions, council? Thank you, and thanks for being prepared ahead of time. All right. Ray, are you up? Yes. Sorry to interrupt you, but I wanted to hit that before I forgot again.
I certainly understand. So item 6 is consider approval of a conditional use permit to establish and operate a residential facility for the elderly out of a single-family residence. The property is located at 417 North, 2480 East. It's zoned R17, and this shows the location on the screen. Here's reference to the mall over here, and just a close-up of this property right here. And again, it's just zoned R17. A couple views of the home. It's just a single-family residence, and again, the request is to operate a Type 2 assisted living facility out of the home. Those have been done before in the city, but it has required a conditional use permit to do it. And it would have to comply with the section of the code, which is 107B3 for residential facility for the elderly. The Planning Commission does recommend approval. On page 3, the report or recommended conditions, I can read them if you'd like, and then on page 3 and 4 and into page 5 are the findings, and I can go over those if you'd like. The floor plan has been clarified, which is here. The owner would live here, and when not working would be in the den, and then there's 3 rooms and a total of 4 residents, and the owner makes a total maximum of 5. And that concludes staff's comments, unless you have questions. You're familiar with this. You've heard it before.
We were just seeking some additional clarification, weren't we, since our last meeting? And
correct.
Sounds like that's happened. And
it's been clarified. It's Type 2 that they would like to have, and it falls under that classification of the section I read. I think it's 107B3.
Council, any questions for Ray?
I should have asked this a long time ago in planning, but I still have a little concern about the exit out the back. If that den is used for a bedroom for the owner, will that door that goes into the living room be closed, or is that going to be open? You know, my thought is if there's a fire and they can't go out the front, are they going to be able to get through that den and go out the back?
This will have to be looked at by the fire department. They'll have to approve
Didn't know
it.
if that had happened
Yeah,
yet.
they'll look at all exits and
Okay. Just seems like they probably shouldn't close off the door from the den into the rest of the house. I don't know.
A question of, is it the health department, or is there someone that periodically inspects these facilities?
they'll have to have a state license, and the city won't issue a business license till we see their state license.
Okay.
So this is conditional use permit at this point, but there's still state approval and then
Correct.
city license.
They'll
State
have
license.
to meet fire codes. Building
Mhm.
department will have to look at it for occupancy. Fire department will have to look at it for
So-
emergency exits, and so I mean, we don't go into those details here, but that's
someone
definitely
will.
part of it.
Excellent.
Good questions. Any others?
Ray, did we satisfactorily respond to any of the neighbors that had displayed any interest or concern?
We had a neighbor come and attend and then turn in signature from other residents, and I thought the council had seen that. And it was talked about quite a bit at Planning Commission, and I think council may have talked about it a little last time, but
We did.
it came down to that. It's a civil matter as far as I understand it, and I haven't since this
In terms
time.
of the CCNR's home,
Yes,
HOA.
Yes.
Good.
Staff hasn't had any more correspondence from any of the neighbors, and notification has been sent out, so.
And we have in our packet a couple of things that, talk about that. I'm sure you saw it, council. Any other questions? Otherwise, ready for a motion either way.
Mayor, I will move to approve a conditional use permit request to establish and operate a residential facility for the elderly out of a single-family residence located at 417 North, 2480 East.
Second.
We have a motion by Betty with a second by Ed. Any discussion on the motion?
I think we just need to add that part so that it's a record that they have to have the state license before they're licensed here, and then the fire department approval.
Approve.
Is that okay, Ed? Okay. We'll just add that to the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, which it had to, so thank you. And we'll allow them to move forward then in the process.
Staff typically makes an action summary of these and sends it to the applicant, and we'll put in those findings and conditions.
Excellent. Thank you.
Item 7 is also a conditional use permit, and it reads, consider approval of a conditional use permit to create a distribution facility for diesel, gasoline, and oil products. Property is located at 3675 South, 1700 East. It's in the M1 industrial zone down in Fort Pierce. And this just shows the code 1011-2 that requires a conditional use permit for bulk plants, class 1 and 2 flammable. So just for reference on the screen, here's Sunrock, here's River Road, and the property we're talking about is right back here. And then enlarged, today there's 3 existing 30,000 gallon propane tanks. Staff has received another conditional use permit where they'll be removing these, and it'll come before you sometime in July or early August to relocate these for AmeriGas. In the meantime, the applicant on this would like to have them removed and put in, I believe it's 15 vertical tanks for storage of material. Again, on the screen it's M1 zone, and this shows a little bit better detail. You can kind of see underneath here where the 3 tanks I was talking about, but this dark line shows a new containment area, and the 15 vertical tanks for the various oil products to be stored. Close-up of that. And then this is just showing that as part of the Fort Pierce Industrial Park. And a detail of the lot. This is typically what the tanks would look like. And that is pretty much the bulk of it. In the report, the Planning Commission does recommend approval, and that is on, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong report here. That is on page 2 of the report. The applicant will have to do a site plan review, application with plans. The tanks have to be installed on a concrete pad. They'll have to set up barriers and barricades as required. They'll have to meet fire department, building department code requirements. All of the truck route will have to be paved, and that is something I probably should have pointed out to you. I believe it's in your application, and I don't have it updated on here, but they've shown a gray area where they'll have this all paved so that they're not driving on the dirt, and they're able to park the trucks on that. And that should be in your packet. Sorry I didn't update this. And at item 6, pave all parking spaces. Item 5, pave all truck routes. Again, it's a conditional use permit. The findings are on page 2, 3, and 4. And I can read those if you like. But the Planning Commission does recommend approval.
I think we're good. We've read those. Any questions, though? And I'm assuming that access road or whatever, that meets our requirements.
It will.
The manner that will be done. Any other questions, council? For
No, just for the people at home, that'll be on just a little over 2 acres in the industrial park area. It's appropriate location.
Okay, I'd be ready for a motion if you're so inclined.
Move to approve a conditional use permit request to create a distribution facility for diesel, gasoline, and oil products located at 3676 South, 1700 East, and will be zoned industrial.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Betty and a second by Ed. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Next item and the last conditional use permit is item number 8, which reads, consider approval of a conditional use permit to construct Bloomington 2 electrical substation. The property is generally located southwest of the intersection 3780 South, and it is on the road that is referred to as Water Treatment Road, and it's also by 1550 West Street. So this is the vicinity map, and the yellow shows the site. It's gone through some changes over time that staff has seen. Originally it was proposed here, but it's been moved over here. The applicant has sent out letters to the neighborhood, has had a neighborhood meeting, has met with them. At this time, staff has not received any complaints or letters or emails in opposition. And again, it just shows where the location is proposed. It's near the solar plant. It's near the sewer plant here, as you can see on the screen. The legend shows the existing transmission lines, future transmission lines, distribution. There is a narrative in your packet, I believe it's about 2 pages long, from the applicant that shows the justification of why this is necessary here. I won't read that unless we need to get into details of that. This is just kind of a street view showing Water Treatment Road here. As you would be driving down it, you would go past all of the residential, and you'd get out into the open space area here. You can kind of see in the distance the area where you'd be going to the solar plant and the water treatment. So it's generally off into this area that we're talking about. Zoning, open space, and then this is showing a general plan, which is floodplain, low density residential and open space. It will be designed, the site, as you can see here, where it's not in a floodway, and any FEMA requirements that have to be met will be met, but pretty much it's right out of the area. The dark line is erosion hazard, but that will be reviewed engineering-wise and accommodated. This shows the site plan, and basically you'll be looking at a similar facility as in these photographs that are typical for an electrical substation. They'll have to put the block wall around it, and they've been asked to do landscaping on water treatment roads, excuse me, hurrying, to buffer between the substation and the street. Planning Commission does recommend approval, and that again was on page 2, and then the findings on the consecutive pages after that. I'll just read that. Number 1, install a 7-foot high solid block wall around a facility. Typically the city has a maximum of 6 feet, but you've seen at other facilities under federal requirements for safety, 7 is what is asked for, and that has been approved on other sites. 2, install landscaping to meet the city code. And 3, do the site plan review application so staff can check the plans. And I think I've covered almost everything. That concludes staff's comments.
Council, any questions?
No, Mayor, that's another real good example of the applicant working and meeting with the neighbors and coming to an agreement and an understanding. And I believe, you know, the changing of the site, moving it a little further away from those residential areas, and the lighting for that facility will be appropriate for that site.
We'll ask to see the lighting. We'll ask to have it dark sky style.
It's good. And to your point, Ed, this was discussed in executive staff meeting, and good input from several departments, and I think it's a good location. It's kind of as far away as we could, and
it's a good spot.
Yeah, and yet it still works for Dixie Power. And again, you know, we try to cooperate. This is, you know, we have our own power company owned by the citizens of St. George, but we don't serve this area of the city. It's Dixie Power, so we're glad that we can cooperate whenever possible in a really good way. So, any other questions? If not, ready for a motion.
I would make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit request to construct a Bloomington 2 electric substation on what is referred to as Water Treatment Road on the location shown on the map.
Second.
Motion by Joe with a second by Ed. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Next item on the agenda, item number 9, consider approval of a final plat for Desert Bluffs at Desert Canyons Phase 1. So this is the Desert Bluffs final plat. It's located just south of Southern Parkway and north of Desert Canyons Road. This is the medium density subdivision with the 3 feet separation in between each of the units. Staff's reviewed it. It complies with all the conditions of the preliminary plat. Planning Commission recommends approval for this item.
Seen this before, obviously, as a final plat. Any questions or discussion?
I'm just anxious to see it when that 3-foot separation's up. see where it can be used elsewhere.
Yeah.
And with the 3-foot separation, it's good for affordable housing, and we should see a real good response to this. We're looking forward to that.
Yeah, we hope so, don't we?
Yes,
yep.
we do.
Okay, move to approve 74 lot residential final subdivision plat located at the intersection of Bracken Rock Way and Desert Canyons Parkway.
Brocken Rock, huh? Not
Brocken.
broken.
It's Scottish.
Maybe it's a bit.
Brocken. Okay.
Scottish.
So let's see.
Sounds like a German beer.
Yeah. So that's lager. Anyway, motion was made by Betty. Second by, was that Joe? Any meaningful discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Next item, item number 10, consider approval of a final plat for Innovative Property Holdings subdivision. This is located at the Cliffs Inn. This is the plat that the city sold them, the parking lot area. Up at the cliff side, there is a stipulation that it can only be utilized for parking. Planning Commission reviewed it and recommended approval for this final plat.
Yes, Sean?
And Mayor, we would ask for any motion on this to be subject to the execution of a purchase and sale agreement for that property. So we needed to get the subdivision done first so that we can clear up all the different property lines, and then we have some stipulations on that purchase and sale agreement and also the sale of the property, actually. So we'll need to have all of that occur before the plat is recorded.
And Council, you should remember we have talked about this for those purposes. Does that make sense? So reiterate what ought to be included in the motion for us, would you?
If you are inclined to approve the plat, that it be subject to the execution of a purchase and sale agreement between the city and Innovative Properties or Holdings.
Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve this item 10 as articulated by our outstanding city attorney.
Okay, including that statement he made
Including
about
that
it being
statement of
subject
purchase
to.
and subject
Or
to
I might actually
purchase
be the
and
one
sale
that
agreement.
does it and not one of my outstanding attorneys.
Oh, okay, gotcha. No.
Second.
We had a motion by Ed and a second by Betty. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Item number 11, to consider approval of a final plat for the ledges of St. George White Rocks Phase 6. This is ledges project. The subdivision up in the ledges of White Rocks. This is a pad development, so they have common and limited common area. We reviewed it, meets the preliminary plat. It does meet also the PD. Planning Commission reviewed it, recommended approval for this plat.
Questions on this request to consider a final plat? Ready for a motion then?
I could move to approve a final plat for the ledges of St. George White Rocks Phase 6.
Second.
Motion by Betty with a second by Ed. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Item number 12, consider approval of a final plat for White Sands Phase 2 subdivision. This is located, if you look at the map, this is located on the far south of the city. And so here's Southern Parkway located here. This is River Road. It's located right here. And so this is
that new, that brand new section.
This is the brand new section, right? Basically intersection of River Road and Southern Parkway.
Yep.
This one, we've reviewed it. It meets the preliminary plat, and staff recommends approval. Planning Commission also recommends approval on this item.
I imagine we're going to be seeing many more phases of this subdivision in the future. You see it right from the Southern Parkway. Saw it the other day. Any questions, Council?
This is phase 2, right?
Phase 2. Ready for a motion if you
I
are.
would make a motion that we approve the final plat for White Sands Phase 2 subdivision.
Second.
I have a motion by Joe and a second by Betty. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Next item, item number 13, consider amending the final plat for Las Palmas Resort Condominiums Phase 1A amended and extended. This is, Las Palmas is an existing subdivision. They're all built out. This amendment extends their current boundaries to include the pool and clubhouse area that is behind the former Green Valley Resort, and so that area will become part of the Las Palmas community, and so it'll add additional amenities to Las Palmas. There's also, it was just brought to staff's attention that there is a city easement that goes through this clubhouse. Right here is an existing easement. The portion of the easement has been abandoned on both sides, but there's still a small portion that goes underneath the clubhouse. That'll need to be shown on the plat, and the applicant will have to come forward later and abandon that easement.
We can't do that at the same time.
it requires a public hearing, so it'll have to come back through the process. But we'll want to show that on the plat. So this plat will have to be changed, and any approval should be conditioned on showing that easement.
This is a proposed clubhouse, right?
No, it's built.
Okay, that's what I was trying to check. I was trying to read into that from staff comments. So this is an existing, that needs to be cleared up.
That's
in the
right.
future, okay. Any other questions, council?
They're existing facilities, and these are new condominium. Okay, I got it. So I've been up there. Okay.
Make a motion to approve, Mayor. Item 15.
Second.
Motion by Ed with a second by Betty to approve this final plat phase of Las Palmas Resort Condominiums, Phase 1A amended and extended. Any discussion on the motion?
Just subject to the removal or abandonment of that existing.
Showing the easement on the plat,
Oh, then we'll abandon it.
and we'll ban it later.
Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Item number 14, consider amending the final plat for Lot 39, the overlook at Green Valley. This is the amending this Lot 39 in the plat to include the right-of-way that was previously abandoned by the City Council. They will continue the easements around the property, and so we'll have our 10-foot easements. We have reviewed it with JUC, and they're okay with those extension of the easements. And that concludes staff's presentation. Planning Commission does recommend approval for amending this plat.
Questions on this one?
Move to amend a residential final subdivision plat for Lot 39, the overlook at Green Valley, to vacate a portion of 1740 West Street and merge it with Lot 39, located on the southwest intersection of 1740 West Street and 740 South Street.
Second.
I have a motion by Betty with a second by Ed. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Item number 15, consider approval of a preliminary plat for the White Sands. So if we look on this map here, you have Southern Parkway here. This is River Road. Just north is the White Sands. It's the conservation area. And so this is just south of that conservation area. This is a 73 lot subdivision. They are requesting lot size averaging. Staff's reviewed it. They do meet the lot size averaging ordinance. There is a portion between the lots and also the White Sands conservation area. The applicant is proposing to dedicate that portion to the city. They want to build a mountain bike trail through there. There's also a portion between this lot 102 and 103 that will be dedicated to the city that'll provide us access for a future water line through here. There are double fronting lots located on the southern portion of the property that will require the 10-foot landscape strip with a 6-foot privacy wall, and that will be maintained by the HOA. Planning Commission recommends approval for this preliminary plat.
Questions, council?
That path or that trail that they want to donate to the city, does that connect with any other trails, or
so
is it proposed, is it going to come along in the future, or do they want us just to take it over so they don't have to pay for the maintenance? Is that
so
appropriate?
The applicant, they own about 1,000 acres in this area, and part of their planning is planning for a mountain bike trail. And so this is part of their overall plan is creating these mountain bikes. So they'll build it. As far as maintenance goes, that's something they'll have to work out with the city. And if the city also wants to accept that dedication, that'll be something that'll be worked out between the preliminary and final plat. That's what they're proposing.
So it's open. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, ready for a motion.
Move to approve the preliminary plat of a 73 lot residential preliminary plat subdivision, for White Sands located east of River Road along the Southern Parkway.
Second.
I have a motion by Betty with a second by Ed. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Item number 16, consider approval of preliminary plat for Sage Canyon Phase 3 through 5. And so this is just south of the one we just looked at. Here's River Road located here, Southern Parkway. The White Dome is located here. And so this is just south of the preliminary plat that City Council just approved. This is a 70-lot subdivision. They are requesting lot size averaging. Staff's reviewed it. It does meet the ordinance. There is an irrigation and water line located along Southern Parkway. That will be either dedicated or easement provided to the city for maintenance and for that water line. They're also providing an access easement between lot 95 and 94 so we can go in and access that water line and the irrigation line. Staff's reviewed it. It meets seed ordinance. Planning Commission recommended approval for this preliminary plat.
Good. Questions, council? It's happening out there, isn't it?
That's you're reading my mind, man.
Yep.
It's all coming together, isn't it?
Yeah, amazing. All right, ready for a motion.
Move to approve 70-lot residential preliminary plat subdivision for Sage Canyon located east of River Road along the Southern Parkway.
Second.
Motion by Betty with a second by Joe this time. All in favor, or any comments, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
The next item number 17, consider approval of preliminary plat for Stonecliff Phase 16. This is another Stonecliff phase for 21 lots. They are against the ridge line, and so no vertical structures can be built within that 100 feet. They are continuing their private streets. Again, this is just a continuation of Stonecliff. Staff's reviewed it, and Planning Commission's recommended approval for this preliminary plat.
Just maybe a mention of what John just said. We don't typically approve private streets, but because this is an extension of a development where there are private streets, like Sun River, then Stonecliff would also qualify for that. It's kind of been our policy. Just so you know, because there could be others that may come to us asking for private streets, and we would, at least at this time, our policy is no, we don't do that.
And they meet the specs for the.
Yep, they've met all the requirements. And any questions or other comments? Ready for a motion?
I would move that we approve the preliminary plat for Stonecliff Phase 16.
Second.
Motion by Joe, second by Ed. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, John.
Item 18 is approval of property purchase for Mesa Villa condominiums. This is tied to the project at 400 South to take that pedestrian crossing underneath I-15. And so we need about 4,600 square feet of property from the condominiums there. And this parcel, it's about 25 feet wide, 190 feet long. And so this item would be to recommend the agreement to purchase that property.
You know where this is, council?
Yes, it's wonderful, Mayor. It connects the university to the commercial area, and it's something that's really look forward to, I believe.
Fits in with our active transportation
really
goals,
does.
and because this is really, it's the only way we could do this is it's, you know, pedestrian bike only.
Right, and it'll come out right over there by a student housing complex on 400, so it's really.
I think another thing to notice is that it's approximately the price that we would sell land to that we own at $12 a square foot or so lately. So.
And it's also a wonderful partnership with UDOT, who has just poured money into our community and partnered in a very responsible way. So.
Yes. Yeah, for the actual tunnel, they're paying half the cost.
Yeah, they are.
And then the university is paying I guess you'd say a quarter, we're paying a quarter-ish, MPO's contributing a little bit. Is there something anticipated here on
I was
comments?
just gesturing to Cameron to see if I missed anything you would add.
So we can expect to see bikes and pedestrians going right through there.
We sure hope so,
It's-
yeah. Anytime you can punch a hole under or go over I-15, it's a good thing, I think, for our circulation.
You know, this thing, it seems to have happened faster than what I expected, but this is really great.
Well, it's still take a little bit of time to
Yeah.
get there, but yeah, it's moving. And as Betty said, I'm really impressed with our UDOT, with the attention UDOT gives us. They certainly expended a lot of state taxpayer and some federal dollars in St. George and Washington County over the last, I would say, 10 years. It's been significant.
Yeah, and Cameron, our Public Works Director, maintains good interagency communications, and it's real positive, the relationship that he's established as well.
So again, tonight, what Adam's presented is the approval of this property. Any other questions about that or comments? Otherwise, I'm ready for a motion.
Mayor, I'd make the motion to approve the property purchase from the, whoops, let me make sure I'm on my right one. I'm on number 18.
Correct.
That's right.
Purchase from the Mesa Villas condominiums owners and association for the purchase of the property at 400 South near the I-15. As we
Second.
just described.
And the amount, we should probably state.
$56,000.
Sound good, Betty?
Yes.
So the motion was made by Ed, second by Betty. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thanks for your work on this, Cameron.
Item 19 is another property purchase agreement, and Cameron's going to give us a little bit of a background on this one.
This portion of property, Mayor and Council, this is along Quarry Ridge Drive, the name of a road that the developer is proposing with his subdivisions. This roadway extends from Commerce Drive all the way up to, and hopefully up to Horseman's Park up by the pickleball courts. This little portion is just in between all of that, just a little segment. So it's just a smaller portion of a larger roadway. The property is right next to the Fort Pierce Wash, and it also encumbers an easement and a sewer line that the city owns. And so purchasing this property is going to help us build this roadway, but it's also going to cover the sewer line. To the side of this roadway, the developer will be installing some riprap protection for the development. We will be participating in a future development agreement that we will soon bring to you for review and approval. But this is just the property purchase of this area.
Any questions? Do you know what we're talking about, Council? It's really that extension of Horseman Park.
Right. You know, this is a good example of the need, the connectivity we are always seeking in the roadways and development of those roadways in that particular area. It's really great.
Eventually, this would extend clear down to Commerce Drive.
Right.
So,
Mayor, I'd move that we approve a property purchase from Sunrock Corporation in the amount of $28,000.
Second.
motion by Betty with a second by Ed. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. I'll sign that purchase agreement and we'll get going. Thanks, Cameron. I don't have any appointments to the board, to boards and commissions. I still owe you one, Ed, so I'll promise I'll get to that. Thought I would get to it today, didn't, but we'll get to that. We could have some reports. Yeah, we'll go to, we want to go to the addendum first, and then we'll go to any reports you might have, and then we'll go to the RDA agenda. So, the addendum, Sean, do you want to talk about this, or Adam? Either one of you.
Do we have a copy of what that is, other than the notice?
It's simply the agreement that you had approved previously for the option to purchase the property to Tech Ridge. In that agreement, it said that we would complete that development agreement by June 30th. Because of some issues that have arisen regarding the property and some other items, we know we're not going to meet that date. So we're simply coming to you and saying, let's extend it to September 30th so that we can get it done.
And frankly, I would love to see it done sooner than this, but we're trying to, not have to do this again. So we set it for that. And it just depends. Sometimes you think, oh, this is easy, it'll be done in a week. Never works that way. Right, Sean?
Never seems to work that way.
So you see what we're doing. We're extending it to, no problem, till September 30th. And we'll give you some more information on the progress of that at a later time. Any questions? Any other questions? Ready for a motion if you are.
Move to approve an amendment number 1 to the purchase and option agreement with Tech Ridge LLC.
Second.
Okay, motion by Betty, second by Ed. Do we need to say anything else? I guess we don't, because do we need to just say an amendment extending the deadline?
We're fine.
Okay. All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And now, I would suggest let's just go, if I could have a motion to adjourn and move into the RDA of St. George.
So moved.
Meeting agenda. Okay. So we have a motion by Betty. Do you have a second? Second by Ed. Any discussion? All in favor, starting with Betty, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. We are now in the RDA meeting, and I think we have one item.
We do have one item, and this is for the RDA portion of the 2019 budget. And I'm looking at the door to see if Dee might pop in any second. I know they've got a 30-second delay in the other room where they're watching, so if she's still watching, maybe. But are there any questions on the budget for the RDA? There were no changes from the recommended budget for these funds. If there are no questions, I think we, as staff, would be comfortable to recommend having that hearing and then recommending approval.
I'm trying to remember, did we have one public hearing already on this too?
We did.
And so we've met our requirement, but I think we advertise it as another one tonight,
Correct.
just like we do the regular budget. So, questions, council?
Require public.
Okay, then I will open the public hearing for any of this vast audience who may have come to ask questions or offer input on this. And seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, come back to you, council, in your role as members of the RDA board, and ask if you are ready to make a motion approving the budget for the fiscal year 2018-19.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Betty and a second by Joe. Any discussion? All in favor, starting with Ed, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. So, and she's coming now? Perfect. We're finished. Before we adjourn from the RDA, Dee, we already approved it. See, we went faster than you thought tonight. Do you have anything you'd like to say about it, though? Yeah, and nothing changed from the initial budget, and we opened the public hearing, so we had our 2, and we passed it, so you're good to go. You're fine. You're fine. If we had questions, we'd have held them.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, so this is to adjourn and go back into city council meeting.
Second.
Reconvene. Sound okay?
Yes.
So Betty makes the motion. Who made the second? Joe?
Joe.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We're back in city council. Reports. Sean, Adam, do you have any reports you'd like to make at this time?
Well, He's not here anymore, but I was just going to tell Chad again formally how excited we are to have him. But just to the rest of our staff, those of you who are here, those of you who are listening, what an amazing group. And I'm really appreciative of the job that you do and your willingness to help the council and the mayor to accomplish the goals they've set for us. And just can't say enough about how much I enjoy working with you. And thank you to you as well, Mayor and Council. It feels good to have the budget done, and good things are happening. So.
You know, Mayor, I just add that we get a lot of citizen comments on how much, as far as transparency, how much they like this new agenda format, and it's a lot more informative and so forth. So that's really good.
I like it a lot too. It's a lot easier than having to, okay, well, see, now we got to shift to the blue one, you know, Planning Commission, and I do appreciate the consent calendar as well.
Yep.
You know, we can always pull one of those or more items out if we need to. But if we've done our homework, like staff has done theirs, if we have questions, great. If not, we approve it, we're done. You see the meetings, these are going faster than they used to. So appreciate it. Appreciate also, Council, you should know, the executive staff meetings that are every Thursday that the city manager holds. It's just, it really is helping a lot. It's helping me, and Adam and I are trying very hard to make sure that we pass along the right information to you if it's between those meetings and these meetings, or between those meetings and the monthly reports. So, and those are works in progress. If you feel like, you know, we need to make changes to that, Adam, we can, right? So, and loved the email that we got from the city manager on the leadership program. What are we calling it? St. George, Leadership St. George.
Leadership St. George, but I would welcome any more creative, fun name than that. But
we can always
Leadership
do that,
St.
but it's
George
good.
works. So, yeah, we're excited about it.
I think it's welcome, and again, some of that was actually proposed by the candidate, Adam Lenhard, and when he was a candidate for city manager, and so here we are a few months later, and he's fleshed some of that out. Some of it's, you know, going to be developed along the way, and he's told me that the mayor and council would be welcome to be part of that in various ways, in certain parts of that. So, no, the other end, you're going to teach it, Joe. But yes,
you're coming to teach.
Yeah.
You're coming to share and to make a contribution. I think our employees would benefit from that.
I think they would, and Adams has told me this. He can't do all this. You know, he needs to run the city, but I think it's a great thing for him to lead out on, and he has. And you should also know the department heads and city manager and mayor are reading a book. We do read, you know, and we're as kind of our what do we call it? Our management thought?
Our leadership thought.
Our leadership
staff
thought.
Meeting, yeah. It's called The Culture Code by Daniel Coyne. It talks about what makes a great culture, what makes our company who we are, and why would people want to come here and be part of this, and what kind of culture do we have? How can we build an even better culture? I picked the book not because I feel like it's something that we're lacking, but I think it's something that, well, for me, I'm just kind of interested in the topic. I've never really explored that too much, but I started reading it, really just resonated with me, and thought a lot about the people that we work with, the good relationships that we have, and thought we might all enjoy going over it together. So
that's what we're doing. We're doing a chapter or two a week.
Daniel Coyne, C-O-Y-N-E.
You know, Mayor, this is the example of communications and listening to all the employees throughout the city, and communicating and listening. Perhaps Gil would take a big delight in that.
I think you would. That's by the way, if you want copies of the book, I'll get you one.
I'll take one. You're going to get one.
Okay.
You're getting them.
Do we have any extras?
Amazon only takes 2 days.
Yeah, we'll get you one. I want. Okay. We'll get 5.
Do we have to have a public hearing?
No.
But it is a roll call.
Okay.
Mayor, I'd like to just add to Adam's comments, because I just value and enjoy working with the staff so much and the employees here at the city, but I also think that we cannot say that without thanking the amazing volunteers. And I have the opportunity to be on many committees of extremely dedicated people that just, it's amazing the time that they're giving and the interest that they're giving in the city activities, particularly the arts. And that we're very fortunate to have them.
I agree. We have a lot going on, and we really can't be who we are without our volunteers. We can't do the marathon. We can't do the Ironman. We can't do the arts festival. We can't do so many things. All the things the Arts Commission does, and anyway, heavy lifting of the Planning Commission and other groups. So, any other reports, Betty?
Right now.
Sean kind of glossed over you. Anything from legal? Okay. Ed? Joe? Sorry to mess things up, but we do have need for a closed session tonight, closed meeting. But I think it'll be fairly quick, and I think you'll be fairly interested in it. This would be for property sale, Adam. Would that be the right way? And there might be a couple of those. So if you're so inclined, I'd entertain a motion to go into a closed meeting after maybe a brief recess. Motion by Ed, second by Joe. Any discussion? All in favor, starting with Betty, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Yep.